She was 10. She told the class she wanted to be an astronaut. The teacher smiled the way adults do when they're about to teach you how the world really works. That's cute," he said, "but let's pick something realistic." And that was it. The first crack. The first time she felt shame for dreaming. The first time she wondered if wanting more meant she was foolish. You have a moment like that too? Maybe not as dramatic. Maybe it didn't look like anything at all, just a quiet decision made deep inside. I'll keep this part of me small because someone convinced you that it was safer that way. That's how it begins. Not with failure, not with rejection, but with the silent agreement to stay where it's safe. Even if it means being miserable. So let's start here. Let's call out the lie. What if the biggest lie you've ever believed is that you were supposed to be realistic? Not responsible, not grounded, not wise, just realistic. The kind of realistic that keeps people quiet, that punishes risk and rewards predictability, that teaches you to dim your light because it might make someone else uncomfortable. That version of realistic has a cost. You stop reaching, you start calculating, you trade wonder for caution, and slowly, without realizing it, you fall asleep inside your own life. And the most dangerous part, you think it's normal. But what if it's not? What if the version of life you're calling reality is actually just a reflection of everything you've been conditioned to believe? Right now, your brain is filtering through over 11 million bits of information per second, but you're only consciously aware of about 40. So what makes the cut? What decides what you see? It's not logic, it's not truth, it's belief. It's the subconscious narrative you're running underneath your thoughts, and most people never examine that narrative. They just live inside it and call it fact. Carl Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. That's not metaphor. That's mechanics. Your life is being shaped not just by what you think, but by what you expect to see. Your mind is a lens, and the most dangerous lens is the one you never stop to question. You walk past open doors because your filter doesn't recognize them. You dismiss compliments because your filter says they don't apply to you. You sabotage good things because deep down your filter says you don't deserve them. And none of that is because it's true. It's because you were trained not to see any other version of reality, but the filter is not fixed. It can be changed, and when it changes, your world changes with it, because reality doesn't respond to your desire. It responds to your readiness, and readiness starts when you stop obeying a voice that was never yours to begin with. So ask yourself, whose version of reality are you living in? Whose limits have you adopted as your own? And how much longer are you willing to let them define your future? Because the lie only has power if you keep telling it to yourself, and the story only stays the same if you keep reading from the script they gave you. But the second you question the lens, the second you stop calling fear realism, you start to wake up. And when you wake up, you don't just change your thoughts, you change your entire life. She sat at the edge of her bed, staring at the wall, heart racing. Everything inside her said, it's over. But just before she gave up, a new thought broke through the noise. Maybe it's not too late. That sentence didn't come with fireworks, it came with fear, because hope after disappointment feels dangerous. But that's where it begins, not with confidence, not with certainty, with possibility. 2 words, it's possible, that's it, that's the hinge, the shift, the point where the old story starts to fracture and the new one starts to form. Les Brown didn't grow up with belief, he grew up with rejection, labels, limitations. He wasn't told he could be great, he was told he was slow, that he'd never amount to anything, but he heard one sentence from one teacher that changed everything. Don't let someone's opinion of you become your reality. He didn't know how to rewrite the story, but he knew he had to stop repeating the old one. So he started saying it out loud to himself every day. It's possible, even when it didn't feel true, even when no one else believed it, especially then. Because belief isn't something you wait for, it's something you build. And when you start saying it's possible, really saying it, something in your mind begins to shift. That filter we talked about, it starts scanning for a different kind of evidence, not why it won't work, but how it might. That's not magical thinking, that's neurobiology. Your reticular activating system, the part of your brain that filters what matters, starts responding to your new command. And suddenly the world doesn't feel quite as closed. Carl Jung called this synchronicity, not randomness, not coincidence. but the alignment between your inner world and the outer one. The moment you stop waiting for proof and start stepping into belief, life starts showing up differently. Jung told a story. A woman came to him, intelligent, logical, controlled. She'd had a dream of a golden scarab, an ancient symbol of transformation. As she shared it, something tapped on the window. He turned, opened it, and caught a beetle, rare, golden, scarab-like, not native to the area. He handed it to her and said, "Here is your scarab." She didn't need to understand it, she felt it. That's what belief does. It cracks the logic just enough for something deeper to come through. So let me ask you, when was the last time something strange happened and you wrote it off? When was the last time life tried to show you a door, but you were too distracted to notice? When was the last time you heard your own desire rise and immediately drowned it in doubt? This isn't about dreaming blindly. It's about tuning into the frequency of what's possible. And if you still think it's too late, listen, in 2016, Gianmarco Tamberi was ready. He was going to the Olympics. Then he shattered his ankle. Just days before the games, they said he was finished. And maybe he was, but he didn't throw away the cast. He wrote 3 words on it, Road to Tokyo. He kept it as a reminder, not of pain, but of persistence. For 5 years he trained, alone, in silence. Not because it was certain, but because it was possible. In 2021, he stood on the Olympic field tied for first. He looked at his competitor and asked a question no one expected. Can we share it? They said yes. And just like that, he became Olympic champion, not because the odds were on his side, because he never stopped speaking to the version of himself that still believed. So now I ask you, what cast did you hide in the back of your closet? What gold did you bury beneath a pile of reasons? What door are you pretending doesn't exist because you're scared it might actually open? Say the words, not once, not if it feels good. Say them until your mind starts listening. It's possible. Say it again. Not for me, for you. Because your future doesn't begin when everything lines up. It begins the moment you decide to speak the truth louder than the doubt. You think the danger is in trying and failing. It's not. The real danger is in what happens when you stop trying altogether because you've been convinced that failure is the only outcome. But that belief didn't come from truth. It came from repetition. It came from the moment someone made you feel foolish for wanting more, from the years you spent pretending not to care because caring made you vulnerable. From all the quiet ways the world taught you to stop reaching before you were ready to rise. And then, one day, you don't even test the door. You just assume it's locked. There's a story about a baby elephant chained to a stake it couldn't break. It pulled day after day until its body learned what its mind never forgot. Resistance is useless, so it gave up. Even as it grew strong enough to tear down trees, it never tried again. Because it wasn't the chain that held it, it was the memory. That's what belief can do. It can trap you inside a version of yourself that no longer exists, a version that was true once but isn't true now, a version that served you once but now suffocates you. Carl Jung called it the unconscious, not just the place where trauma lives, but where unexamined assumptions hide, where old rules keep whispering in your voice even though they were never yours. You say, "This is just who I am," but who gave you that name? Who gave you that ceiling? You say, "That kind of life isn't for people like me." But who taught you that, and why are you still obeying it? The danger isn't that you don't know who you are, it's that you've mistaken programming for personality, and until you interrupt that pattern, the pattern will write your life. You won't even know you're chained. You'll just call it being practical. But sometimes life gives you a moment, a fracture in the rhythm, just long enough to see the script for what it is. Carl Jung once worked with a woman who was skeptical of anything emotional, anything symbolic, anything beyond logic. She came to him with a dream. A man handed her a golden scarab. She thought it meant nothing, just a dream. But as she spoke, something tapped the window. Jung turned, opened it, and caught a beetle, rare, golden, scarab-like. Not native to that area, not common at that time of year. He handed it to her and said, "Here is your scarab." And in that moment, everything she believed about how the world worked cracked. Not because it made sense, but because it made her feel something she hadn't felt in years, a wonder. Jung called it synchronicity, a collision between the outer world and your inner one. A moment so precise it bypasses logic and hits your soul. And here's the truth you don't want to hear. Those moments have already happened to you, but you ignored them, you dismissed them. You wrote them off as coincidence because you didn't feel worthy of that kind of magic. But maybe it wasn't about worthiness, maybe it was about readiness. Synchronicity doesn't happen when you have it all figured out. It happens when you're open, when you stop demanding proof and start recognizing patterns. So let me ask you, what scarab knocked and you didn't open the window? What nudge did you ignore because it didn't come with credentials? What if the thing you're waiting for already showed up, but in a form that your disbelief couldn't accept? You're not just missing opportunities, you're filtering them out before they get the chance to change you, and it's not your fault, but it is your responsibility now. So test the rope. Don't assume it still holds. Don't assume the story still fits, because the chain might be nothing more than a sentence someone else said a long time ago, and the scarab, it may not come again. Let me ask you something, and answer honestly. When you imagine your future, do you see yourself rising or do you see yourself breaking? Because most people don't realize it, but they're rehearsing failure every single day, not on purpose, but through imagination. You visualize rejection, you replay worst-case scenarios like a highlight reel. You walk into a room and picture people judging you. You think about starting something new and immediately imagine everything that could go wrong. That's not being prepared, that's being conditioned. Your imagination has been hijacked by fear. And fear, when practiced long enough, starts to feel like foresight. But here's what you need to understand. The body doesn't know the difference between a real experience and a vividly imagined one. Your nervous system reacts to the movie you play in your head. So when you picture yourself failing, stumbling, falling behind, your body responds as if it's already happening. Your palms sweat, your heart races, your confidence shrinks, and then you hesitate. You pull back, you stay silent, and the world calls it shyness or insecurity or playing it safe. But it's not safety, it's rehearsal. You've been teaching your mind how to fail, but if that's true, then the opposite is true too. If you can rehearse collapse, you can rehearse rise. And that's not theory, that's practice. Olympic athletes do it every day. Before they run the race, they run it in their minds. Not just once, over and over. They feel the ground beneath their feet. They hear the crowd. They visualize the moment they cross the finish line. And when it happens in real life, it doesn't feel like luck. It feels like arrival because they've already been there. Carl Jung said all the works of man have their origin in creative fantasy. That includes the life you're trying to build, the confidence you want to embody, the version of yourself you barely let yourself imagine. It all begins in your mind. So what are you imagining now? What's the internal movie that plays on loop? Are you the hero or the cautionary tale? Are you climbing, or are you waiting for the ground to give out? Here's the truth. If you don't consciously use your imagination, it will be used against you. And every moment you delay rewriting the script is another day your nervous system continues rehearsing failure. So tonight, try something new. Close your eyes and picture the version of you that didn't stop. The one who said yes, the one who trusted the feeling, the one who reached even while trembling. Picture them clearly. And when you see them, when you really feel their energy in your chest, say this: "This is already mine. I just haven't arrived yet." Don't say it like an affirmation. Say it like a decision. Because imagination isn't wishful thinking. It's spiritual scaffolding. It's the blueprint that belief builds upon. And every time you choose to imagine forward instead of backward, you stop rehearsing regret and start remembering who you were always meant to become. You don't just think in sentences, you plant them. Every belief you repeat becomes a seed, and every time you water that seed with repetition, with emotion, with silence, it grows, not in the world, in you. And eventually your life begins to mirror that garden. The missed opportunities, the silent rooms, the unspoken desires, they're not just random. They're the fruit of thoughts you didn't know you were still feeding. And here's the hardest part to admit. Most of the thoughts we live by aren't even ours. They were planted in us by people who didn't believe in themselves, by systems that were built to contain, not expand, by moments we were too young to challenge. We internalized them, we repeated them, and now they wear our voice. Carl Jung warned us, People will do almost anything to avoid facing their own soul, because when you do, you have to face the garden. You have to see what's been growing in you, and you have to take responsibility for what you've allowed to thrive. That's not shame, that's liberation. Because the moment you admit the soil is still yours, you realize you can pull the weeds, not all at once, but one by one. That belief that says, I'm too late, that's a weed. That voice that whispers, don't try, it'll never work, weed. That sentence you hear every time you get close to something real, who do you think you are? Pull it. You've been overwatering old narratives, mistaking them for truth, and the cost is measured in years. So start now, even if you don't believe yet, even if your hands are shaking, even if it's just one sentence. Replace it with something new. Not some glossy affirmation, something real, something honest, something defiant. I'm allowed to outgrow who I used to be. Say it, let it echo. Because here's what they don't tell you. The garden doesn't care if you're confident. It only cares if you're consistent. You don't need to feel strong to plant something new. You just need to be tired of what's been growing. The story of Les Brown proves it. They told him he was mentally slow, that he'd never catch up, that he didn't have what it takes, and for a while he believed them. Until one teacher said the words that would change everything. Don't let someone's opinion of you become your reality. That was the moment he stopped watering what others had planted. That was the moment he picked up the shovel and began digging something different. It didn't bloom overnight, but it grew. Because belief is cumulative. Every time you choose the new sentence, the old one loses power. So what do you want to grow? Because it's growing already, whatever you feed. And one day someone will look at your life and call it lucky. They'll see the success, the peace, the transformation. But they won't see the early mornings, the quiet repetitions, the time you chose a better thought and no one clapped for it but you. Let them wonder. You'll know the truth. You didn't wait for a breakthrough. You planted one. There comes a point where you stop asking for permission, not out of rebellion, out of realization. You realize no one else is going to write the life you actually want, not your parents, not your boss, not your past self. And the longer you wait for someone to hand you the pen, the more pages get filled with lines that don't sound like you. So here it is. This is the page, the one you've been circling, the one you've been afraid to write, because you know once you start, it means everything changes. It means you can't unsee what you see. It means you can't unknow who you're becoming. It means you can't keep pretending that the safe life is the true one. Carl Jung called it individuation. Not just self-discovery, self-integration, becoming whole, reclaiming the parts you buried, the courage you forgot, the desire you silenced, the truth you edited to fit into a life that never quite fits you. And here's what most people never realize. The gap between the life you're living and the life you want to live, it's not time, it's not talent, it's not even luck, it's authorship. It's whether or not you're willing to stop quoting everyone else's expectations and start writing something original. That means saying the thing, taking the step, risking the silence that comes before the echo, risking the beginning, because beginnings are terrifying. They're blank. They ask you to trust a version of yourself you've never met before, but they're also sacred, because this moment right now is one you'll either look back on and say, that's where I turned the page, or that's where I almost did. And that choice, that's yours. So say it, the line that's been stuck in your throat for years, the truth you're done postponing. Say it for the version of you that's still waiting behind the noise. Say it because no one else will. This is your chapter. You get to decide if it reads like a warning or a beginning, and if this moves something in you, don't keep it to yourself. Share it, because someone else is still holding the pen like it belongs to someone else. And your courage might just be the thing that sets their story free. And if you're ready to keep writing, if you're ready to unlock your mind to infinite possibilities, subscribe, not to me, to you, to the life that's been waiting, to the next line, to the next sentence, to the version of yourself that finally stopped editing and started living.